Real life.
Superpowers.
It's a balance by which you need to build a huge story of how eventually your mission is going to truly conquer the world at masses, but also put some realistic blocks in the path to get there, which the combination of both somehow makes sense and it's believable.
Hey everyone, welcome to Real Life Superpowers. I'm Noah Eshed, here with my co-host Ronen Menipaz. Our guest today is Ilan Peleg, co-founder and CEO of Lightrun, a startup that's redefining debugging in the age of AI. Before founding Lightrun, Ilan's competitive spirit showed up on the track. He was a national champion in middle distance running and ranked among Europe's top 16. That same drive now fuels his journey as a tech founder. He's been featured on Forbes Israel's 30 Under 30, led engineering teams in cybersecurity, including at Fireglass, which was acquired by Symantec, and today runs Lightrun's global operations out of New York. The company recently raised a $70 million Series B, led by Accel and Insight Partners, and is on a mission to transform how teams identify and resolve issues in real time, turning one of tech's biggest pain points into an opportunity for speed and innovation. Let's dive in.
Real life.
Superpowers.
Up in the sky, it's a bird. It's a plane.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
It's alive!
Real life.
Superpowers.
Ilan, welcome to Real Life Superpowers.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
What are you up to these days?
We're building Lightrun. We keep building Lightrun. We're growing the company. It's an amazing journey. I'm sure we're going to have some time to talk much more broadly. I just moved to New York very recently, so I'm still settling up in my cozy apartment here. Excited to be here.
And Lightrun, that's not new, right? When did you found it?
Yeah, it's been 6 years. On one hand, it seems like super long, and going back 6 years seems like the world has changed so much. The world, myself, the company, my co-founder, the whole team. Yet, I also consider it it's just 6 years, and there's so much to do that we haven't even touched.
That is so interesting because with our last guest, he's got a startup in stealth mode, very early stages. And I specifically remember a sentence that he said, and he was saying, can you imagine doing this for 10 years? And to him, it seemed completely far-fetched. How can you navigate that even mentally for so long? So for you, it's only 6 years. So that's perspective, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say the key is just enjoying the ride.
Do you?
Yes, I enjoy. At least most of the time. No, I enjoy. I really enjoy it. I think what's interesting about this journey is that every phase, every new phase you have to, overcome eventually teaches you more and more lessons, and they're different each time. At the beginning, it's mainly around ideation. Then you move on to phase raising your first funds, then building the first team, then first GTM, sales, product market fit. So each phase eventually, introduces new challenges, new lessons you need to gain. So even though it's 6 years, every year is different than the others. So you keep learning, you keep innovating, you keep growing, both the company but also as a human being.
If you would put a timeline, let's say, okay, of a startup, okay, there's 6 years of that, okay?
Yep.
And break it down to, let's say, every 2 years. Give me a title of a chapter of every 2 years, 0 to 2. Let's give it a name.
I would say product market fit, right?
Okay, what does that mean?
The idea is that eventually we'd like to build a delightful product that people, organizations, enterprises, in our case, truly love. And you even have some proof points which make you believe that they truly love, and you create meaningful value that you can even somehow, put numbers into and evaluate it and
Okay.
measure it. So this is like the first, I would say, 2 years.
And 2 to 4?
2 to 4 would be GTM fit. So the first one was more like product market fit. The second one would be more GTM fit. So you build something that you think people or organizations love, but now you need to make sense that you need to make sense of how you sell it, how the product is being bought, and how do you build solid foundation to scale it. It's a bit different. You can build something that people or again organizations would truly love, but maybe it's not their priority. Maybe they simply don't know about it. Maybe the landscape is changing. So
don't you get pushed to close if you build something during the first 2 years that you identify that people love, but isn't a priority? Like you need to scale to reach the GTM, meaning, by the way, for those who don't know, listening, go to market fit. How do you move from phase 1 to phase 2 if people love it, but there's no market fit?
You don't. You need to keep iterating over. This is why I do claim that product market fit can take up to 2 years. It can take forever. It can be much faster. Right? It depends. I think to your question, there are a few mistakes you can do, which is like building and scaling your GTM before you truly achieve this product market fit. And sorry, but it may bite your ass later.
Can you elaborate on that a bit? Because I'm a little bit confused how you can measure the love of your target audience to the product and at the same time not measure the fit to the market.
Yeah, of course. So think about it. You can build something that you can probably sell at the beginning. Mm-hmm. But there's so many different questions should be asked in order to assess how strong is your fit, like your product market fit. One question is how repetitive or how easy would it be to find the next customer? Like sharing the same, common grounds, sharing the same characteristics as the one that you already landed and you believe they love it. Second is what's the engagement level of those customers? There's one thing which is lending into those customers and selling them, but the other side would be, retaining them, but more important, growing them, which is yet another signal of product market fit. Like, again, you may come up with an amazing product, start selling amazingly, but then you realize, and you need a cycle of, assuming we're like talking about, B2B SaaS, which is the industry where I'm coming from. Usually deals are annual. So you need at least like a sales cycle plus another year of renewal to say, okay, I've built something that is delightful and people or again, organizations will really love. And the other thing is TAM, obviously, the total addressable market. I mean, maybe you found an amazing niche and it's solid enough to build an amazing, business, but you're not playing the VC game because, the TAM is not big enough. So you also need to make sure that the problem you're solving and the product market fit is wide enough.
Which I suppose if it isn't, in a sense, you can go down the angels path and make it more of a lifestyle business.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you can, there's so many different ways to build business. And we are talking about, startup life. And startup is a very unique creature by which you need to have a huge TAM and your product should be ready to scale to serve hundreds of millions, if not billions in sales in a few years, right? It's quite, it seems a bit impossible, but this is like what we are all trying to do here.
Entrepreneurs are the impossible is nothing people. And the third chapter?
The third chapter obviously is scale.
Okay, so like on the scale, you already have a product, I understand. I have a question. If you had to rate, which one of them is the most difficult? Like, which one is like the killer of companies? Would you say the 0 to 2, 2 to 4, or 4 to 6? Which one is the most dangerous?
I would say 4 to 6.
Why? It's only scale.
First, like I would say, generally speaking, you have much less romance, and you're measured much more, over numbers. So you're becoming a creature of numbers, while keep, working on the story, building it out, making sure that you're adapting to market landscape, market dynamics, and so forth. But it's becoming a numbers game, and you truly need to be prepared to this phase. In the product market fit zone, you still have like some flexibility, and you still have some tolerance. People, investors, the outside world, and even internal like team expect to have some grace, expect that whatever you do is more around assumptions, like big significant assumptions of which you build out the company, right, and raise funds and so forth, and hire the team. Yet you're still in a product market fit, so you have some tolerance. At the scale phase, you have zero tolerance, and you simply need to deliver quarter over quarter, month over month. So I would say this is the hardest one. By the way, I do have a fun story from one of our investors, which somehow reminds me of a question, Ronen.
Yep.
Which is once we already started scaling the company, we keep talking about customers, how we grow, everything. How we grow, I mean, both in terms of customers, but also internally as a team. And obviously, each one of those verticals also introduces some challenges. And then he said, we had this discussion about like product market fit versus scale. And then he said, startup life could be very, 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 very fun if you didn't have customers and employees. Of course, each one of those like eventually introduces challenge, but also the opportunities, right? Because this is how we grow. We grow with our teams and we grow with our customers.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways.
We're excited to be collaborating with the Israeli website CTech, owned by Kalkalist, Israel's leading business newspaper. CTech is the gateway of the Israeli high-tech to the tech world and vice versa. If you're not already a regular reader, we strongly recommend that you check out calcalistech.com, CALCALISTECH.com, to stay up to date on all high-impact stories from the Israeli tech scene.
But I have a question for you. That something's funny for me. Like the scale, you have a business, right? You're selling something. You didn't sell it. Let's say you're not selling good enough. Worst case scenario, but you're selling something. My intuition would say the scariest part would be where I have either nothing, where there I'm just selling a dream, or maybe the scarier is I'm not selling a dream already because it's a real thing, but I can't do scale because I don't know what it is. Like 2 to 4 sounds to me like the scariest, intuitively, right?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Listen, like everything is hard and everything is joyful, right? When I'm going back like 4 to 5 years ago, if you would ask me, it's like super, super hard. Like
no, I'm not talking about hard. I'm talking about survival mode. Like I'm talking about
Gotcha.
the scariest. Like fun, I understand that everything's challenging, but here I'm saying, okay, like there's a 80% chance. I'm just throwing numbers, right? You answer this, but there's an 80% chance that I can't get investors because it's only a dream. That's 0 to 2. There's a 90% chance because now I got these investors, but I'm not selling anything. Do you understand what I mean?
Definitely.
Like, I'm talking about death.
Definitely. Okay. I was not sure we're talking on the same page. So I tend to agree with you. Eventually, most of the startup ideas do not scale to become solid businesses, selling tens, hundreds, or even hundreds of millions, or even more than that. So statistically, I would assume you're right. And
which one? 0 to 2 or 2 to 4?
2 to 4, yeah. Because eventually assuming you raise some funds, you will build a product and you will probably sell to a few customers. So you could claim you attain this product market fit, while in fact you haven't, and then you will realize it in 2 to 4.
Right.
Right. So I tend to accept this theory, and I've never done any research on this one, but it seems right.
And like, do you? So again, where do you put the gauge on selling to investor to being very practical? Because there's always this thing, you have to. People want to see that you have a grandiose plan, but at the same time, you also want to be realistic. Where's the gauge on that? How do you manage that?
Wow, that's a great question. First, I would say it's a matter of style. There are different founders with different, styles, and then it also, brings different investors with different styles. There are some investors where if you're not telling, in the past we've been talking about your story should be around or should justify how eventually you're going to build a $1 billion size company.
Right.
But now it's not enough, first. And second,
it's
there are
not?
some, seems like not. And second, there are some, investors that if you're not going to tell $100 billion size company story, they wouldn't invest. They would think you're not crazy enough there, and they invest only in crazy founders. So first, just without even answering directly your question, I would say there are different ways and different styles. So this is just, to put things in some context. I would say eventually it's a balance by which you need to build a huge story of how eventually your mission is going to truly conquer the world at masses, but also put some realistic blocks in the path to get there, which the combination of both somehow makes sense and it's believable. So it's not only about like sharing romantic stories and envisioning the future. Eventually, we as founders envision the future, not only of what we are building and how successful it will become, but how will the market evolve until there, because it's a combination of both. Suddenly, both circumstances should, the success of the product that you build and the company, but also circumstances of the market. So a lot of your assumptions somehow also rely on market dynamics that will evolve. But also, once you have this big story and you have like good, I would say, solid claims to justify it, I see like justify it as a mathematical proof, but with some unknowns. But you need to build like a claim over claim, and it should make sense, right? With some real data eventually backing those claims. But also, you should be very opinionated. I mean, if you're just collecting some, data points from Gartner, you're a great analyst. You should be very opinionated, and this like opinionated opinion of how the world will evolve and what is the huge gap that is going to be created that is ever growing, and it's dangerous to not attack this problem. Right? It's dangerous. The world is becoming vulnerable. We wouldn't survive if we're not gonna have this solution. This is where you come in with your opinion, and you should be very opinionated about it. Otherwise, like, why should anyone invest? You're just like assuming what's gonna happen, and this is why there's so much analysts out there to analyze like what their assumptions are and what are the required solutions. You should be very opinionated that you're feeling you accidentally found a very specific pain point, and you're coming up with a very specific solution.
And how did you know, like, who did you have that will help you or that you could turn to when you first set off on this journey?
It's a great one because we've been engineers. Myself specifically, I didn't come from A200 or any specific clique, I would say, where you have a lot of like existing network you can somehow rely on and start navigating it. So I simply started reaching out to founders or CEOs of companies I've been working for.
Having mentors, this was the point when you reached out? That was the goal?
At the beginning, I was not quite sure because I was not quite sure like what's the ask. I mainly was looking for some initial feedback on the idea, and eventually it turned out to some of them becoming advocates of the company, and some of those advocates also like invested in the company. But basically, it's growing, like the network is growing exponentially. Each one that likes you introduces the 2 or 3 other. When you multiply it, you're coming up with like a wide network, after a few months. So we didn't have any network, but in a few months, we got to know some amazing, I don't know, tens of people, which, some of them are amazing entrepreneurs, investors, and key, characters in the ecosystem. So each one of them becomes a proxy to potentially connect it to everyone in the world.
And who is we?
Myself and Leonid Blouvshtein, my co-founder.
How did you meet him?
It's a good story. I met him over the bus. So we've been, both of us, we grew up in Ashdod. I was around 20 or so. Leonid was, he's like older in a year. He was like around 20, 21. And basically, the story is that back then, I used to be a track and field professional athlete. So I used to take 280 line from Ashdod to Tel Aviv. And Leonid shared the same bus line because he used to be in a Today back then.
Meaning people that went to do their academic studies before the army, and then they serve in the army in the context of their degree, and they sign up for further years because they do their studies instead of the army.
Right. They graduate before army, exactly. So I heard some rumors about, like, from some mutual friends about him being like a genius, and I simply hit on him. Like I sat down next to him, and we started like talking about like.
Why did you care about getting to know him? Because you had this fantasy at that stage of doing something of your own, and you needed a co-founder. Like, was that the idea?
Yeah, it was quite early, right? We've been kids, but even back then, I had this conceptual idea that at some point I'd like to build something. And in fact, we built something. It was like a very nice project that we sold out. I wouldn't call it an exit. It's far away from it. But we built a very nice project.
What, you and him? You and him?
Yeah. We like even back then, I already had some ideas, and I wanted like to be like. Since I remember myself, I really love building stuff. Okay, same with Leonid, by the way. We found this mutual passion once we got to know each other. So we started like building some things. And back then we built something that eventually united us as a team, and we acknowledged that we understood that we love working together, and we see ourselves teams. Since then, we did want to, solidify our career path and our knowledge and our, industrial expertise and all of those. So each one of us, we graduated, we learned much more. We worked at different companies. So we wanted to see ourselves professionals before we jump into, founding a startup.
Wait, stop there, because that's really interesting. So you knew that you want to build stuff of your own, something significant. You were also doing this along the way, but not anything that you felt was significant enough. Although I will say, I do think you probably were already doing things that were above what most people would do, and maybe some would call it an exit, what you're not even, but that's just a hunch of mine. I just think maybe you're shooting higher. But then, so you and Leonid, you become tight, but you tell yourselves, okay, I need to first see how I'm navigating, how I'm operating within an organization, maybe pick up some skills before I build my own real thing.
Definitely, you'd like to become professional. Not only professional, but you'd like to become, you'd like to create some, domain expertise at a very specific domain that you feel first very comfortable with, but second, very skilled with, and third, understanding problems at this domain deeply.
And you both wanted to explore the same domain?
So retrospectively, yes, we didn't hit that very specific domain as a business domain, but rather than an expertise. We've been both engineers, but eventually there was a reason why we founded a company helping engineers in their day-to-day, because we've been both coming from this background, and we felt like much easier to swim in this, landscape rather than.
But let's talk about hitting on him. I want to understand the hitting on him. Okay, so how'd you hit on him? Okay,
I wouldn't share my secrets here. I wouldn't share my secrets. I'm sorry.
You have to.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. I just sat down next to him and started like, I don't really remember, but I remember just sitting down next to him on purpose. And look at it, like where we are now. So definitely.
You sat down. How old were you?
20.
20. And then how many years fast forward till you both become co-founders if I understand correctly, you were building things along the way, right? But
Yeah, but I don't see that at co-founders. But we founded Lightrun when I was 27.
so 7 years.
Yeah, in those 7 years, each one of us built a career. Maybe before that, even like graduated. So a lot of things we had to, again, we truly believed and we keep believing that you need to be an expert in your domain. So.
And did you stay in touch all that time? And
Yeah, we became, maybe I didn't mention, and it's super important. We became best friends.
But I'm curious if the goal was to establish domain expertise and ripe to a stage where you're ready. Like you sat down, you became friends, and you set off on a journey that you knew that one of the significant milestones in your mutual journey would be doing something together, and that remained the plan as your careers evolved?
Definitely.
Weren't you sometimes diverted from that? Like maybe you got offered promotions and more money and more opportunities, that you stumbled across. Like, how did you keep your eyes on this vision together?
So it's a great one, and it's been a while, and honestly, like I forgot, but now that you're asking this question directly, I remember that Leonid, he's coming from the right areas in A200. So he was a very attractive talent. And he received some, lots of different offers. And I remember that he was consulting with me of what should be the right offer he should accept in order for him to be better skilled for the coming opportunity that at some point we'd like to establish, what eventually turned to become Lightrun. So it was not only like optimizing for, I don't know, salary package, whatever other things that, most of the employees out there optimize, career path. And he knew that the career path at some point he will become an entrepreneur. So he was trying to optimize for that.
That is fascinating to me. And do you remember at what point during those 7 years, Lightrun as a concept was born?
Of course. It was just by the end of 2019. And both myself and Leonid, we had some significant, I would say, projects, again, as engineering managers.
And how old were you then?
Yeah, 27.
Okay, so as pretty soon after the idea was born, you went for it.
Yeah, usually a good idea in the startup world, you have limited time to execute it. Because if it's good enough and you truly recognized and found a big gap that should be filled, if it's big enough and the opportunity is significant enough, others will feel it. It's not a coincidence that, oftentimes you see like one startup is attacking a very interesting problem, raising funds from top VCs, and then others join as well. One explanation behind it would be, hype of VCs and like the follow kind of trend. The other one is a true problem, real problem that is emerging and should be filled, should be solved.
Whose idea was this?
It was a combination of both of us. I mean, like, I came up with a problem and Leonid came up with a solution. Like I came up like literally with a problem I had, which was super painful for me. And we just scheduled, sitting down on with a whiteboard the weekend after.
The cliche.
The cliche, but this is the story. And I said, listen, we must solve it. Like it's a big one. We must solve it. We must find a solution. And Leonid just, started like building an architecture and eventually coming up with a solution that.
Had you been able to identify this problem if you didn't spend those several years working on the ground in organizations?
I wouldn't. I'm going to tell you even more. As mentioned, we've been good friends, sharing this, mutual passion of building things. And at some point, we saw ourselves founding a startup. So from time to time, as every other entrepreneur in the world, I would assume, it was not the first idea. So we explored some different ideas. And we had ideas in different domains. And it took us a while just to navigate and assess those ideas, simply because we were not experts in those domains. So we had to somehow meet with experts, then interview them. So until you meet them,
But why would they? What's their interest to meet you?
Assuming you have some good idea, people would like to solve problems for themselves.
Okay.
So we started like meeting with experts in different domains with some ideas we had. And it took us a while to navigate, to assess those opportunities, to verify hypotheses, while once we came up with an idea that is hitting the very specific domain that we simply live by, things were moving much faster, like significantly in orders of magnitude faster. And this is where we figured that first, we must stay in this domain. Second, we simply enjoy solving problems that we as users eventually encountered.
Which is typically also the best business models in startups.
Exactly. And it also goes back to one of the key things we just started the conversation with, which is, it's going to be a bumpy ride, but you must enjoy this ride. So,
you're an athlete. So do you run like sprints or marathons?
I used to run 800 meters.
So that's not marathons.
That's not marathon. I used to run 800 meters, which requires both stamina and endurance, but also like speed and power. So
you have to strike a balance, which in many ways is reflecting and is an analogy to your career.
I agree.
So that it is probably not coincidental, because you have the tools and the mindset of an athlete that knows how to balance between those aspects.
Yeah, you need to start the fastest you can and keep accelerating. This is 800.
And what kind of a house did you grow up in? Where was your pivoting, although expected, to doing your own thing? Was that something that you got support for, or were the people around you worried? Your family?
I will probably need another hour to cover this one, but it's been bumpy journey with my parents as well. I always, I don't know how and why, but kept having non-traditional decisions in my life. So the first one, I would say, were a bit tough to digest without getting in details here, but it took my parents, a while to accept them. But within time, they simply gained trust. So I still remember the call where, I called my both parents that I'm quitting my job, which was relatively a new job. And we all celebrated this job because I was still quite young, and it was a good one. And my salary was raised by 30% or so from the previous one, and so forth and so forth. And then, I'm calling my parents, I'm quitting this job, without, by the way, any investment, so any, salary guaranteed, anything guaranteed. We're not, by the way, 100% sure about this idea. We just figured that we need to focus all our efforts to move faster. So I called my parents. I let them know that I'm about to quit my job the day.
Are they entrepreneurs?
No, they're not. My dad is a doctor and my mom is a teacher. And then I still remember this call. My dad asked me, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, 100%. By the way, I was not sure 100%, but I said, "Yes, 100%. And then my dad, the second question was, "Is it strong? Do you feel it's strong?" I said, "Yeah, it's going to be amazing." And then he said, "Good luck, go get them."
Wow, so much pressure.
Yeah, and then my mom joined. My mom joined to this call because most of the time when we were talking, my mom and my dad, they're taking it together. And my mom was super supportive as well. She said, "Ilan, remember I told you that I believe in you and you're going to build big things and you're going to do big things. So this is going to be this one."
Wow. So they definitely did help plant the seed in you.
Yeah, my mom kept saying that I was destined to build big things. I never really realized what is she talking about, but she gave me that belief that everything is possible.
Is she the one that pushed you also to be an athlete?
No one really pressed me to become an athlete, but when I had those big dreams, no one also said, "Hey, you're illusional." For them, it was like, keep believing in these big dreams and go pursue them.
So why, when you think back of that call, do you recall it as a very difficult one? Because it sounds like...
Actually, it was not a difficult one. What I meant to say is that it was a very emotional, supportive, and like a very positive one.
They weren't surprised, I suppose.
They were surprised because, they knew that I would like to do something at some point, but there is a difference between like, hey, you want to do something. Everyone want to do something, everyone has some dreams to do something. There's not like a formal, dream I had. It was mainly around, I'd like to build something. What does it mean? I was building something in my work as well. But suddenly quitting a job that we just announced very recently and we just celebrated and made some toasts over. So it was different. But again, the call was very supportive and very positive. So definitely.
And what about Leonid's family? Did they support him?
Still like a few years after, we've been running this journey, Leonid told me that his grandma is still asking him, "Hey, when you're gonna find a real job?" So for her, she didn't really understand it. I believe now. Yeah. So I don't know. You need to ask him. I don't know. I know that they're amazing and they're supportive. I know him very well. I know like his parents very well, but I'm not quite sure what was the reaction. I'm sure it was supportive, but I don't know the exact details except for, again, his grandma keep asking, "Hey, when are we gonna find a real job?" Years down the journey.
It is what it is. I suppose she's going to remain with that agenda, probably, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I suppose he knows how to hold that within. And you're entering the next chapter now. So what's the title of that one?
We already scaled the company. We already have customers such as Apple, Salesforce, Microsoft, United Health, SAP, Citibank, New York Stock Exchange. So it's really AT&T, whatever. So it really have like big customers across industries. So it's not a matter of product market fit, scale, and so forth, but it's more around how do we build a big company out of it. So, a lot of interesting challenges as well, a lot of interesting things we need to address. So I would call it like a chapter of building a big company.
You probably feel more resilient at this stage, though, right? Like you've been around for a while and you've got a lot of validations.
Yeah, a lot of validation, a lot of lessons. But now I also have a team. It's not only you anymore.
That's been true for a few years now, hasn't it?
Yes. But the team keeps growing. So as it grows, you keep like adding more professionals to your team, and you're not the only one, addressing those challenges. So yeah, definitely. It's an intriguing one.
And Ilan, what would you say your superpower is?
Wow. I would say mainly grit. Like everything is possible. It seems like cliche, but truly everything is possible. And maybe the other one, still under the same superpower, but another, cliche would be that eventually every challenge is also an opportunity. Because your problem, I can also explain it. It's not like like a cliche for me. Every challenge eventually, you're probably not the only one as a company, as an individual facing this challenge. And statistically, not everyone will succeed. So statistically, every challenge you face, assuming it's a challenge that is being faced by others, some will drop. So assuming you're gonna overcome this one, it's an opportunity to win your competitors and become stronger, better, bigger, and so forth. So every challenge is truly an opportunity, and this is like how and every big problem you can break into smaller problems.
That is fascinating because it sounds like you're gamifying the process in your head.
Yeah, you must. each everyone in his own like methods. But yeah, definitely.
I think that plays into the fun part that you were talking about, because if you frame it that way in your head and you're trying to identify where this challenge puts you and how you can overcome this stage in the game, then I think it even opens up more creativity through that lens. So I really like that. And
Definitely.
what would you say your kryptonite, your weaknesses?
I'm going to be politically correct here, not truly, but I care about a lot of things. So sometimes, like when you have a big team, like a lot of customers, and suddenly it's becoming a bigger ship. You have so many things to care about. So you need to somehow balance it with priorities and delegation to people and so forth. So I still need to work it out, you know.
How to let it not get in so much?
Maybe, yeah.
Interesting, because it's also dangerous to stop caring or to stop.
Agreed.
You need to care just the right, to preserve a good amount, a healthy amount.
Agree. Everything eventually is balanced. Yeah. You need to balance everything. Question is, where are you in the spectrum of the balance, right?
Athlete.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a cliche saying, giving a shit about not giving a shit. That's the balance.
Nice. Yeah, I know. I know this one actually. Yeah. Nice. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for your time. It was interesting
enjoyed it.
speaking with you, and I personally learned a few things, so I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
That's all for today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, if you have a moment, we would really appreciate it if you could rate and review our podcast on the platform you're listening to. This will help others find our show. And as always, if you know anyone who you think would enjoy our podcast, please share it with them. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back as usual on the 1st of the month.
Real life.
Superpowers.
Up in the sky, it's a bird. It's a plane.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
It's alive.
Real life.
Superpowers.